Join lifelong Star Wars fans Lauren and Steph as they dive into the world of Star Wars fan fiction, discussing a new fic each month, breaking down the writing style, characters, canon relationship, and more. This is your source for Star Wars fan fiction recommendations. So come on and find out why it's one hell of a fanfic. Hey y'all, I'm Steph and this is Lauren, and we are one hell of a fanfic where we bring a different fanfic recommendation to you every month. So hi Lauren, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. I'm so excited to talk about our little Halloween story that we read this month.
Oh boy, was it scary.
Most wonderful time of the year.
I read this story right before we got on the online here, and I don't do horror. I mean, this was like horror light, but like I was still like, oh no,
It's a little creepy at times.
it was creepy, and
Yeah.
like the author did a great job making it just creepy enough. And I was like, oh boy. And I was walking down the stairs after reading it. I went to go get water, and I had to turn all the lights on. My cat ran past my feet, and I jumped.
Oh my gosh.
I'm a
So you're
baby.
very, very sensitive to scary.
And it wasn't even scary. That's the thing. But now my brain's like, everything's creepy. So this dark hallway that's long and creepy, and you can see the light at the end. And I was like, I don't wanna.
You know, I'm sitting here laughing, but honestly, like when I read a horror book, I cannot let myself read it after dark or I will be like that. Like I have to read it when it's light outside because if I keep reading after dark, I'm going to get all freaked out over like little things and it's like I can't handle it if it's dark. So, when it's nighttime everything feels a little creepier for
It
sure.
does.
Yeah.
It wasn't dark out when I first started it. But of course, it's that time of year.
Should we get into this one?
Probably. So to jump in, we read Ghost Stories by KCKenobi. KC as in like the letters Kenobi. It was written back in 2020. It's only like 6,500 words, which seems to kind of be our sweet spot of how many words we tend to read. There's no spice whatsoever in this, which was fine because that would have been weird in this story. um, and this is like an alternate universe kind of story where it's Star Wars characters, but it's not really fully Star Wars. It's interesting.
Yeah, the planet that they're on does not feel like a Star Wars planet. Like technically they are on a planet, but
The
it's
planet's name is
definitely
Samhain. Like
yeah.
they just named it after like
It's got some Earth influences
it
for
does.
sure. Yeah.
Okay, tropes. What tropes are there?
Okay, tropes. Of course, this is a horror. That would be like the genre falls under, but it's also a ghost story and a haunted house story.
Those are tropes I've never heard of or never thought of, mostly because I don't want to.
Yeah. If you're not into horror, you probably wouldn't really come across very many haunted house stories otherwise.
No. What was the author summary?
Okay, so this is the little blurb that the author included at the beginning. They did include like a little piece of dialogue to give you a taste, but I'm just going to read what kind of sums up the general idea, which is in a mysterious house of unknown horrors, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka each encounter their worst fears. So, very intriguing because what does that mean? Which we will get to. But why do you think people should read this one?
The writing was really good.
Yeah. Is horror just not your thing? Is that what I'm picking up? It's just not your thing. Oh no, did I pick a fic that you were doomed to not like because it has scary parts?
Weirdly enough, I liked it. But I'm gonna struggle. It's not that I wouldn't recommend it because it was well written, and the way that the author was able to use their words to be able to elicit that like creepy response, well done.
Yeah.
So that's why I would recommend it.
Yeah. I mean, it's fair enough if it's kind of like one of those things that's like, okay, I respect that this is a good fic. Is this the kind of fic that I would choose for myself? Maybe not. You know, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
For me, I would recommend this. So I do like horror. I can't watch horror, but I love reading horror. So I enjoyed it for that reason because I feel like this author did do a good job of, like you were saying, like getting that kind of creepy vibe. It's not too scary, so if you're not super into horror, it's not like this is gonna be like crazy over the top. It's just kind of got like some creepy moments and like some weird kind of creature and stuff like that. So it's good if you're like kind of wanting to test it out and see. And I like the blending of Star Wars in a horror setting. We don't really get a ton of that, so I really thought that was cool. And of
Yeah.
course, I would recommend it because it's Halloween, and this is obviously specifically a Halloween setting, which was cool.
And something else I've been saying lately, if you like what we're doing and want to support us, if you could like or subscribe on whatever it is that you're listening to us on, that'd be amazing.
Yes, please do. And now we will move into our spoiler section. So if you're thinking about reading this and you don't want spoilers, now is your time to turn back. I guess first, before I get into what I start talking about, what this is actually about, I'll say it is written in third person. So we're kind of getting in a little bit into everybody's heads, kind of switching perspectives with each kind of section. Are you ready for my long summary?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm preparing myself. I don't know if you saw me looking around, but I heard noises behind me with my headphones on. I was like, oh no, what are these noises? I'm
Oh
not
no.
gonna sleep tonight.
It's
Okay.
that weird creature. Okay. No, there's nobody behind you, don't worry. Okay, so in this story we have Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka, and they're on a mission to meet up with a bounty hunter who supposedly has information on Dooku's whereabouts. We don't really get a lot of details about that because it's not really necessary, so that's pretty much all we know. And they end up on a planet called Samhain, which of course is named after the origin festival for Halloween. So that's what we were meaning about our Earth influences on this planet. And on this planet, it seems like it's always Halloween. Like there's like a creepy kind of classic Halloween vibe all the time. It's like fall trees, bats are flying around, it's a full moon. It's very like Halloween movie feeling. And they end up in this creepy old house, which again, like Halloween house, where they're trying to track down that bounty hunter, and they find out that the house is haunted. Weird things are happening. There's like some kind of creepy moments that they're each experiencing as they're moving through the house. And this isn't really explicitly stated, but it feels like there's a lot of like dark side activity happening. Um, Although it's also touched on as well that they can't use the force in here very well either. So that was kind of interesting. It seems like the force is kind of doing some weird things here, which I thought that was a cool kind of interpretation of what could a haunting in Star Wars look like. So kind of combining that was cool. And when they're in there, there's also like a malevolent, invisible creature of some kind, and that's like terrorizing them. They're all having visions of the future, which is pretty much like their worst fears. They're being made to watch them. And at one point, the three of them are separated. They each have a creepy experience of their own. Obi-Wan accidentally gets locked in a closet. Anakin gets trapped in a mirror, and Ahsoka has to fight that invisible creature. And then they have to confront visions of people who died on their watch. So Qui-Gon, Shmi, and the clones that died when Ahsoka was in battle with them. So they're all like really freaked out. Obviously, this is like terrible. And eventually they do find the bounty hunter, but they realize that the bounty hunter is also a ghost too. Like somehow the bounty hunter was like killed in the house and is a ghost now. And they decide they need to leave without the info. And they're like, we need to just get out of here. This is too much. So they ditch that and they leave, and they get out safely and they're okay. But it still kind of ends on an ominous note because there's this section at the end where the author's like, yeah, they were fine and they got away from the house, but like all of the stuff that they saw in the visions eventually did come to pass. So that's a bummer. But yeah, so that's the end of the story. So yeah, there you go.
The end.
I don't know if the bounty hunter was ever named. Was she?
No, it was
Okay.
an unknown, just female bounty hunter.
Okay. But what did you think about how the characters were portrayed?
You know, that's one of the many actually well done things. They were done well. This author obviously read the Clone Wars, or watched, had the dedication to sit through all of that.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
did feel very Clone Wars specific. Like when I was
Yes.
picturing it in my mind, I was picturing the Clone Wars cartoon. Like I was picturing this as a Clone Wars episode.
Yeah. I mean, where else do we see Ahsoka as a child? But,
yeah.
But yes, like Anakin and Obi-Wan, and they were all very close. Like you had Anakin, who was very like foul-mouthed and snarky and always cracking some kind of joke, some relatively funny ones right in there too, right at the wrong moments, which it made it perfect. Ahsoka, one of the things that the author put in about Ahsoka actually like made me really appreciate parts of this where it was a horror fic. It was goofy at times. They even threw in mentions of Halloween Town, like the movie, multiple times.
That's funny.
And I was like, oh, that's exactly funny. And like it, which made it very not Star Wars, but at the same time threw in some of the deeper Star Wars things, that those little things about the characters that you get to know about them in the show. Like they mentioned how Ahsoka was questioning whether or not the war was the right thing to be doing if the children on both sides were dying, and that how Anakin thought that view was naive. And like just the fact that they threw that in and the way that the author threw that in was great. Because to make it creepy, of course, the author's like, yes, they go into the house and then they go into a room full of cradles and mysterious babies crying. You're like, oh God, that's scary. And but they're then talking about the war and how the children are just kind of, refugees. And it was sad and scary and creepy all in one.
Yeah, that's a good point. We really did get a taste of kind of everything because it's like you said, there's that Halloween Town comment, which makes you laugh because obviously. And then I did think it was funny how the author's like, yeah, it's a hollow Halloween Town, the Hollow movie, which is like, yeah, makes sense. So yeah, it's like that makes you laugh. But then there's also like a couple of deep moments too, especially like when they're having to confront the people that died.
My
Like
goodness.
people whose deaths they blame themselves for. That's like, whoa, that's beyond just like, ooh, it's a creepy ghost, you know? So yeah, I mean, we really did get a little bit of everything with these characters in here.
Oh, just to throw it in there, one of my favorite things about how they portrayed Obi-Wan was that when it switched to his perspective, like you see, I like when authors do this. Sometimes when an author will just write a story talking about characters, they talk about it specifically in whatever their voices that they narrate in. But I like when authors do specifically this, is where they talk, oh, it switches to Obi-Wan's perspective. And now it's almost written in how Obi-Wan would write it. His brain went somewhere and he like kindly told it to hush.
Yes.
It was
yeah.
It really kind of made it him thinking.
Yeah, totally. I agree. Like the way that the author's voice changed with each character was very seamless and believable for that character. Well, should we talk about like our reactions as we were reading this?
Yeah. What reactions did you have?
Okay. Well, so especially like my main thing that stood out to me is I enjoyed the horror like how horror would be interpreted in a Star Wars universe. Like how there's something weird with the Force in this house, and there's an invisible creature that you can't really tell if it's actually a ghost or if it's just like some strange creature that's like taken over the house. Like all of those things I felt like were a cool way to take Star Wars lore and put it in a horror aspect in a way that still makes sense in the Star Wars universe. Because I don't know if we really talk about ghosts in Star Wars canon.
There's
other than
Force
ghosts. Well, yeah, I'm talking about like, I'm talking not Force ghosts. I mean like, like scary ghosts. I'm trying to think of like if there's an example, maybe in a comic somewhere. I could see a scary ghost being in a comic.
Not at least. I'm thinking book or comic. Like I don't remember anything in the on show. I mean, maybe you know what, somewhere in the Clone Wars, something. I feel like something happened that was, but I don't know if it was like ever explained. Like
Yeah,
they
or
probably
it
figured
was
it out.
like, oh, it was a scary force vision,
Yeah,
which I don't know, but I thought it was cool how the author took like horror tropes and Star Wars tropes and just kind of mashed them together and
yeah.
explained them in a Star Warsy way. So that's what really stood out to me.
If you think about the Jedi temples and all of the visions that the any of the like say the Padawans will have when they go into a temple or anyone really, and they go in and then they experience whatever it is the force is showing them, it can be very, very real. So why could it this not be something that happened? That
Yeah.
seems like it's something that could work in Star Wars. Anyway, what
Yeah.
was my reaction? I once we're moving past the fact I don't care for horror that much. I like the way that the author took the the words on the actual page and used it to emphasize certain things. I have a passage pulled up. So in one part, and everyone has disappeared, and Ahsoka is just in the room that they were all in originally, all by herself, and she finds Anakin's lightsaber on the ground, and she turns around, and there's a dirty mirror on the wall, and it says, "And in that reflection, she was completely alone." Well, not quite. Thump, thump, thump. And each one of those words on the actual page is indented further and further, and it's in italicized lettering. It really emphasizes and kind of puts that creep factor in where your whole brain kind of gets involved in what's happening on the page.
It's like you feel it a little bit more because of how the words are arranged. It would be different if they were just like typed out normal, like the rest of the stuff. It wouldn't like stand out as much. Well, I mean, I will say it did leave us with some questions unanswered
Yeah.
at the end. Like, not everything was figured out.
No, definitely not.
Which it did
They
kind of
have no
add to
idea
that
what happened.
unsettling. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't know, and we never find out like why the house is haunted, why they saw those people specifically,
No.
anything like that.
Yeah, and that's part of like and the woman dying. So that this bounty hunter, they're in the room with her and she is screaming and Obi-Wan stays back just to like he's like, "You two get out. I'm going to grab the bounty hunter and we're going to go." And then when he gets her outside, her body is cold already. Like he's like she's been dead for hours. We just watched her screaming. So whatever it is messing with their heads, and that's just creepy. And the whole thing was creepy
Yeah.
because of it.
Yeah,
I
that
do have a
was
good
creepy.
question for you though. I didn't think it was going to happen, but you picked this one, and I should have seen it coming. And Qui-Gon Force Ghost again.
Okay, I thought that was not actually Qui-Gon Force Ghost. I thought it
I
was
mean, it
just
wasn't, but
yeah. It was like a vision that the house was making him have of like Sith Qui-Gon.
I think yeah, it was something like there was the lightsaber was stabbed through his chest.
Oh wait, no, that's what it was. It was stabbed through his chest. Okay, I remember when I was reading this, and it was like Qui-Gon, and then it was like red lightsaber, and I was like, oh my god, is this Sith Qui-Gon? And then it turned out it was stabbed through the chest, but my
Yeah.
brain just remembered Sith Qui-Gon. My brain just kept that part.
I mean, that's almost better than what like seeing Qui-Gon dead, ghosty, coming for you.
I know, that's so sad. Because then if
Yes.
it's Sith Qui-Gon, then it's easier to write it off and be like, yeah, that would never happen. But dead Qui-Gon, that's sad. That did
Yes.
happen. Yeah, so not as fun as Force Ghost Qui-Gon.
So prior to this fan fiction, I know I hadn't put this together, but like you said at the very end of the story, the author talks about how all of these worst fears that everyone had ended up being actually what happened in canon. And I had never really thought about how true that is. I've never gone, oh wow, yeah, this Obi-Wan really doesn't like this isolation, like being having everyone taken away from him, and then he's stuck in a desert for 20 years. And then Anakin is he's always like in the story they're talking about how he sees the darkness in himself and all of the people around him turning on him, and all in that it's all foreshadowing for everything that happens later. And I hadn't really thought about that. Have you?
I mean, it was like, it's crazy how specific the house was in preying on exactly what each of them was afraid of, and also like what they were kind of doomed to do.
Yeah. I mean,
Or
the
have
author knew the
happened to
outcome of how everything was going, so
Well, yeah,
you're able
yeah,
to
yeah.
get specific, but
I mean, like, but it made me sit there and be like, okay, how could the house know this? Like, is the house like possessed by some sort of like Sith ghost or like some kind of Sith entity? How is it that the house could know this and be doing this to them?
the Force is all knowing.
Feels like there is like some kind of a dark side vergence in the house. Like, you know how there can be just like a vergence in the Force? It feels like a dark side vergence is what made it haunted. But we never get that confirmed. That was just me kind of like spitballing about why it could be haunted.
No, that makes sense. I was like, yeah, this seems like it would work. Because I mean, the Force sees it all. They know the flow of time and who the chosen one is and why that is. So it makes sense that there's probably maybe it was just a very strong Force area, and then a some kind of bad thing happened there, and or something, and it turned nasty. There's a lot of places in the galaxy.
Yeah.
Who's to say there isn't one with Halloween Town on Hollow?
Yeah, that's very true.
I found it amusing when Ahsoka referred to Qui-Gon as Grandmaster Qui-Gon, like Grandpa.
I caught
That was
that
clever.
too. Well, and I also was thinking about like, it kind of made me laugh too because Grandmaster is like also a title.
Oh, it could
Like
be, yeah.
Yoda's Grandmaster, but that's like she's saying it in a different way than like the title.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, Qui-Gon's a Grandmaster, but like in a literal sense, not the title.
Yeah,
Like,
Grandpappy Qui-Gon.
yeah. Yeah, that was cute.
All right, so you picked next month's. What are we reading?
Okay, so no, you picked it.
I guess I technically did.
You
All right.
technically we picked it together, but you
We
had the
did.
final say.
That's true. And because I had the final say, you went, do we want to do this general audiences one or do you want to do this mature one? And I was like, what do
And
you
you picked
think?
the mature one. That's how I remembered that you picked it. It's because I was about to read it, and then I was like, no, this is the.
Yeah, guilty. All right. Okay, so I picked Standards of Professionality by Trixie. I'm terrible at this. And it is a Cody and Obi-Wan cross or ship. There you go. Cody Obi-Wan ship, and I actually really don't know what it's about. It's really not that long. But we're gonna find out, and it's not gonna make us afraid to put our feet over the edge of the bed the next night.
Yeah, Halloween will be over by that time. So
Where can everybody find us?
So we are on Instagram at One Hell of a Fanfic with a period in between every word. That's where we post when we have a new episode out. YouTube at One Hell of a Fanfic. Almost shouldn't be that hard to remember, right? At One Hell of a Fanfic. And that is where we post whenever we have a episode. We like actually record the video as well. So if you like watching while you listen, check us out on YouTube. And then we're also on Tumblr, which is also One Hell of a Fanfic.
That's all.
So there you have it. All right. Well, we will see y'all next month.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much for joining us at One Hell of a Fanfic. On this podcast, we discuss Star Wars fan fiction, but we do not own the rights to Star Wars or any of the written works we cover. We have no affiliation with Lucasfilm or the fanfic authors we credit for their work. For questions, please email us at onehellofafanfic@gmail.com.